Mary Johnson, 123 Main Street, $25,000 budget, patio, fruit tree, swimming pool for 20. Oh, hey, are your sales a total mess because you're keeping track of them on sticky notes around your office? Or do you have some hodgepodge spreadsheet that's just not really even working for you? If you're trying to grow a profitable enterprise from your landscape company, you've got to upgrade to a professional sales CRM. But getting started might seem hard. You might not know where to start or what software to use. Well, in today's episode, I interviewed Dave DiGregorio, the project manager from Groundwork's Land Design in Cleveland, Ohio, who shares how he used a sales CRM, LMN, to help in the growth of the company from a $600,000 a year organization to a $3.5 million organization. He shares how they track their marketing sources and some of the decisions they've been able to make as a result of that, and how they manage a lead from when they call into the office to assigning the lead to keeping track of it and ultimately closing the sale. He also shares how this allows them to deliver a better experience to their customers to earn and maintain their reputation. My name is Jack Jostes, and welcome to the Landscaper's Guide to Modern Sales and Marketing. This show is all about helping lawn and landscaping contractors increase your profit and enjoy a better lifestyle as a result of your sales and marketing. But if you implement what you're going to learn on this show in general, you're going to get more leads. And if you don't have a proper sales CRM to keep track of it, you're probably going to do more harm than good. But don't worry, getting started is really easy, and Dave shares some of the things that he did really well. For those of you who normally listen to this show, I invite you to watch this one on YouTube or read the transcript and follow along with the video at ramblinjackson.com/podcast, because Dave surprised me. He actually created me as a customer in his CRM and shares his screen showing exactly what they do to manage this sale in the CRM. So check it out in the video form if you can, and if not, listen along very closely because this is a great episode, and let's get started.
We weren't getting the leads that I knew we could. We weren't getting the right leads.
What started happening is that our leads are more qualified.
Our sales have probably gone up by about 10 to 15% a year.
We're going to increase our sales volume by $1 million in a year.
All right, everyone, here we are with Dave DiGregorio from Groundwork's Land Design in Cleveland, Ohio. They're a $3.5 million design, build, and maintain company. They work with residential and commercial clients. And I'm excited to interview Dave today. He has worked at Groundwork's Land Design for 8 years, starting doing just about everything to now he's a project manager. He's one of 3 people who does sales at the company. We're going to talk about how they use a sales CRM to close more deals and ultimately run just a better organization. So Dave, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jack. I'm pumped to be here, and it's really great to reconnect with you after getting to know you a little bit down in Louisville at the GIE.
Yeah, that was great meeting you there. I'm bummed that we won't be there in person this year. I will be speaking at the Landscapes virtual show with the NALP this year, so that'll be cool, and I can't wait to go back to Kentucky. Hopefully next year it'll be open again, but it's super cool to connect with you now on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about what do you do there? What does Groundwork Land Design do? What do you guys do? And how do you manage your sales? So
basically we are a full service design, build, maintenance landscape company in Cleveland, like you mentioned. We focus on high-end residential properties from a design, build, and maintain standpoint. So, we're looking at larger cap projects and also maintaining things start to finish. So we deliver on the maintenance side a landscape maintenance program, which is, we have several mandatory services to get started, and we want to deliver a very high-end experience and a great experience to all of our clients start to finish.
Great. And what are what are you guys using for what? First of all, what is a sales CRM, and what led you to start using one at Groundworks?
Yeah, so a CRM, at the most basic definition, it's a customer, relationship management tool. There's a lot of different options out there, but pretty much, we went from your typical, we start up, we're doing things on paper, we're doing things on note cards, sticky notes. At one point, and getting to so many clients where you go, how can we keep track of everybody? It's impossible. So believe it or not, along the way, some of those pieces of paper got lost, and we weren't able to remember where that person lived. What was their address? What's a good phone number for them? Do they have an email we can reach them at? So we saw there was a need, to dive in and get a little more, something that's more reliable. And that's when we started looking around for a CRM where we can store all of the client information and easily track that from anywhere.
And so right now you guys you're on track to do about 3.5 million in revenue this year. Is that about right? That's
right. Yeah. At our most current projection, we're going to land somewhere around 3.5 million this year.
That's awesome. And so you've worked there for 8 years. Just in round numbers, how much revenue was the company doing when you started?
When I started, we were probably somewhere around the $500,000 to $600,000 mark. And now, about eight years later, we're about that 3.5 million mark.
Wow, that's quite a lot of growth in 8 years. And when was it? I mean, I started my company with pen and paper. I remember when I had a paper calendar that I really liked, and that was how I rolled for forever. And then I got an iPhone, and I started using the calendar on there and my computer. And then what the problem with paper calendars is that you can't sync them right with anything that's digital. So you either got to go all in on digital or just be totally analog in your own little universe. When was it that you guys realized that you needed to go all in and get an actual sales CRM to keep track of everything? Around what revenue mark do you think you were? And what were some of the challenges that you were having at that time?
Yeah, I would say probably south of that $1 million mark. We kind of knew I always knew, and I've always thought, technology is something that we need to lean on in any industry, and especially with landscaping. There's so much that happens in a day and so many variables. You got to have something that will consistently allow you to plan for each day, attack each client, and be very organized. So I knew at an early stage, and so did the owner of our company, we knew we had to get more involved in tech. So I'd say definitely south of the $1 million mark. So it's not like you need to be doing $1 million before you need technology. Right out the gate is the best time to start using technology. The sooner the better, especially with CRMs, because there's no early or no good time to do it. The sooner the better, and the more comfortable you can get with your system.
Yeah, I agree. And, my company, we started using one we were around the 800,000 mark maybe. And I really wish that we had started sooner, because once we started using it, it just streamlined everything. And I think we could have reached our sales goals faster. So for the people who are listening that maybe aren't using one, or maybe they're not using it totally well, what were some of the problems that you had in the business before you started using a sales CRM?
Yeah, so one thing that we've always wanted to do at Groundworks is deliver a high-end experience to our clients. And the biggest thing in delivering that high-end experience is the details, the little things. Everybody can do the major pieces of work. Everybody can cut the grass. Everybody can lay a paver. But it's the details along the way that add up, that create that great landscape experience for clients. So one thing it really solved for us was to be able to track communication throughout the process. So there's so many of those conversations you have with clients, from the initial conversation to the day you start production. All those little conversations add up. And I know any landscaper has been there, where you have the old, you said you would do this conversation with a client.
Right. Right.
And those little things, those little hiccups along the way, maybe you did say that, maybe you didn't say that. But if you're able to track that digitally and reflect on that and say after each meeting, have a nice, clear, concise communication history, you can deliver on those promises. And you can also go back and say, you know what, this is what we talked about. Here's, exactly when we talked about it. And this is why we're delivering what we are now. So that was one thing that really helped us ramp up the total experience for client.
Yeah, and I really believe that the client experience is what differentiates landscaping companies, because everyone can, like you said, can do the work. Certainly finding people to do the work is hard, right?
That's very difficult. Yep.
But I think that this also relates to being able to hire and pay more for top talent. Is being able to deliver that experience to your customers like you're talking about. And the CRM allows you to capture all those little details. And then if you do have turnover, right, if you have turnover in the middle of a project, you've got it logged somewhere. You don't have to dig through someone else's email or text history or whatever. It's, assuming the people actually use the CRM, it's there, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so which CRM are you guys using, and which ones did you consider? How did you end up with the tool you're using?
Yeah, we went through a couple initially. First one we used was Salesforce. We jumped right into that, and it's a great tool. It's really good, but we found it was just more on a very high level, large commercial application.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really fit for us. So we eventually landed on LMN, which is Landscape Management Network, which is a landscape-driven CRM platform. So we kind of landed on that about 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We actually met them at the GIE initially, and we were in between a few, and we didn't know exactly. It was hard to make that decision, but we were just kind of impressed by LMN in general. So we pulled the trigger on LMN, and I would say that's probably single-handedly the best decision we ever made for our business, almost undoubtedly.
Wow. And why? What makes it one of this?
It's so just a traditional CRM is storing, saving clients' information. LMN really takes you from start to finish. So you have something that's tracking that experience from initial phone call to, breaking down the progress of a job once it's completed. And that has been, that tool has just been fantastic for us. It's cloud-based, so that's a huge thing. If you go back to your old gripes of, I left my lead sheet at the office, I have to drive 15 minutes there and go pick it up to get my information and take it back to the client. Being able to access information from anywhere, from a phone, an iPad, computer, anywhere you have internet access is invaluable. That's invaluable. So the fact that it's cloud-based makes it very, very easy to access everywhere. Outside of that, just the platform in general, to be able to build your estimates in there, to be able to track your budgeting in there, to be able to track the time once the project starts. It really is the full package. So it starts with a CRM, but it really leads you through, and to have something to be able to track that client experience from start to finish is what allows us to, set ourselves apart, deliver a better experience, and make sure we're being profitable the whole way through.
And what are some of the ways that it's working? Are you able to share maybe, are you closing more sales? Are you increasing profit or productivity? What are some of the benefits that have come out of this?
Yeah, I would say, the biggest benefit individually is that when you have access to all these things and you can streamline enter the client information, track those communication histories, build your estimate, and do it all very quickly, one salesperson can now do the job of 3 salespeople, and you can manage that process much more efficiently. So you're eliminating, whatever you would pay a salary and commission to a salesperson is whittled down to one person that can do it, not only just do it, but do it effectively from start to finish.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really like about using a CRM is that it can help you manage a process. You can help people follow a process more easily than if Dave, the sales guy, is out with his paper notebook doing what Dave does, like, and we have no idea what Dave does, we can now manage people a little more closely, and that allows you to then hire other people. Like your company now has 3 people. Now there's going to be little variances between each salesperson, but for the most part, following the same process. So talk to us a little bit. What is the Groundwork's land design sales process like? What are some of the milestones that, let's pretend you get a new lead through the website contact form, or someone calls you, or they email you, hey, I got referred from my neighbor. What are some of the stages that you're going to guide me through if I were a customer?
Yeah. So, our typical sales process is, like you said, the initial touch. So whether it comes from a phone call or referral, a website, that's one thing we can track as well, is a referral source. So that client can be, we can attach that to a referral source, which is, as you know, in the marketing industry, it's very, very, very important. You got to know where your leads are coming from. So when that initial phone call or request from our website comes in, it gets assigned to somebody, whoever is best fit for that client. So if someone says, I'm looking to do, a new home build and I'm looking for a full install, we have someone that just does that. If they're saying I'm looking for maintenance for my property, that's kind of something that I specialize in, is maintenance of properties. So that'll come to me. So initially we get that phone call or email, then it gets assigned to the sales representative. So within that, we want to have, a max of 24-hour window where we're contacting that person. Usually it's much quicker than that, especially with a phone call. We'll go ahead and transfer that phone call to the representative's cell phone, so we can try to get that process down very quickly. From there, we set up an appointment with the client to meet on site, talk through their needs, talk through their interests, and what they're looking to have done. Once we do meet with that client, we're entering communication history on their profile in our CRM. So that way it's stored in one location with that client, with a timestamp, the date we met, the time we talked, and exactly what they're interested in. So that's one way that it's a huge benefit, is that that's always there. It lives there. You can reflect 4 years ago, what was my first conversation with Mrs. Jones like? What did we talk about that initial time? All in one location. So from there, we're developing an estimate, getting it to the client. On a bigger design build project, that process gets a little more lengthy, as far as, material selection and all those things. On a more, smaller scale, service, maintenance, things of that nature, it's a pretty quick process. So from there, we schedule out the work, deliver the product, follow up, all along the way, and complete the project. From there, we're doing follow-ups. If we have some really big clients, we'll do, some nice gifts. We try to do personalized gifts after the process is finished. And we're always asking for people to rate us online, as that's an extremely, extremely important thing for us to have good online ratings, since the landscape of how people buy is generally people are sold on you before they even call you.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I'm glad to hear that reviews and gifts were part of the process. One thing that we've started doing is actually sending gifts during the project, because I build websites. We do search engine optimization and branding. You guys build and maintain landscapes. Aside from you building landscapes and me building physical things, they're similar in the sense that once people buy, there's a long time that can go by before they get what they bought. And there's a lot of opportunity for them to be unhappy or, things like that. So we have strategically added gifts along the way during the project that I have found have really helped people, I think, just feel good during that project. So it might just be something to consider. I think, sending a gift at the end is awesome. Yeah. And, so one of the things that we do is we write website text for people. That's the biggest pain and problem that people have when they're creating a website. We take care of that, but you still need to read it, And that's where it's like, oh man, I've got to read all this stuff. So we send people coffee and I don't know, it's
Nice.
just fun. So anyways, I love that you've got gifts baked into the process. I think this overall, it sounds like a really good sales process. One question is, so you said when the lead comes in, it gets assigned to the right person. Who's deciding on that? Do you have an office manager, or like who actually manages that decision?
Yeah. So if it's really clear cut, like where it should go, our office manager fields that phone call and said, she knows, everyone in the company knows that I'm doing mainly maintenance and then smaller cap projects. So usually it's a pretty obvious, clear cut who it's going to. We have a designer on staff, and then the owner kind of work together on leads. So sometimes he'll do individual projects, but for the most part, the owner of our company is doing a lot of the larger project sales. So it's pretty clear who does what. And I think that is important to know and be niche about, okay, who's doing what, get really, really good at that process. And let those people that are good at that process do just that, instead of like, I'm pretty busy right now, can you take this for me, is not great, because sure, I can handle it, we can get it done, but you're doing this all day, every day, all day long. You're customizing your process. You know what to look for, ins and outs. So finding a way to get really good at people getting niche at certain parts of the sales process is really, really important.
I agree. And having that role clarity also allows someone like an office manager or whoever answers it. They don't need to say, oh, well, let me get back to you. It's just like, hey, you're the best fit for meeting with Dave. I'm going to transfer you to Dave. Like that, as a customer, gives me a lot of confidence that you're passing the ball to the right person. So you said you set up an appointment on site with the client. How much qualifying are you actually doing on the phone before you set up that appointment? Are you just scheduling an appointment with everyone who calls in, or are you having a conversation on the phone first?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of qualifying. I mean, even our office manager does some baseline qualifying, based on, where are you geographically? Are you within our service area, and not going outside of that? Because we know this is where we want to be. This is where we want to work. So some real basic level qualifying comes from the initial phone call. Once it gets to us, we're doing a lot of qualifying, because, when we look back on our pen and paper days, any phone call that came in, no problem, we'll be there. Can we meet? Do you want to meet today, tomorrow? What's good for you? I'll meet you there. You show up, and who knows what you're walking into. So one thing that we picked up that has been a very valuable tool is really qualifying, understanding the type of person you want to work with first and foremost, and then B, what questions do you need to ask in order to make sure that A, this is a good fit for you, or this is someone that we're looking for. You're not just, someone that's looking for a contractor, but do you fit the bill for our business model? Are you the person we're looking for?
I think that's so important. And we have a podcast episode for those of you listening about the Hell Yes customer worksheet. I call it your Hell Yes customer, which means when the phone rings and it's that person, you're like, hell yes, I can help you with that, and then you need to have a no list also. A funny story. I was speaking in New Jersey, and they have a lot of poison ivy out there. And so I was just kind of surveying the audience, and I was like, hey, what's the one service that you don't want leads for? And this guy's like, I don't want leads for poison ivy removal. And I was like, I'm like, well, somebody's got to do it, and I bet somebody will. Does anybody here do poison ivy removal? And sure enough, there was a guy who's like, yeah, I'm all about it. And I'm like, great. Now that you have a no list, find somebody you can refer to who's on your no list. And now you can just say, hey, thanks, Mrs. Smith. We don't do poison ivy, but Larry's poison ivy removal does. And here's his number. And now maybe Larry pays you a commission, maybe not, but you've got a no list, and you can give that office manager, hey, we don't do these services. We don't work in these zip codes. This is our service area. And that can, I really see the whole sales process as a disqualification process. You're disqualifying people. And then when you find the right people, you take amazing care of them. So many landscapers just meet one, they don't qualify at all. I did a mastermind last year. I did a Breakfast of Champions table, and there was this guy, the owner, had his office manager. He's like, oh, I'm working 100 hours a week. And we dug into it. His office manager was anyone who called. She scheduled an appointment for the owner of the company to go and meet with. They didn't qualify at all.
Oh my
So
God.
he was, you know, spending
all over the place. Yeah.
literally all over the place. So I'm really glad to hear that you guys have that clearly defined. And if you, for those of you listening, if you check out ramblinjackson.com/hell yes, you can get that Hell Yes customer podcast and the worksheet. So you've got a really clearly defined Hell Yes customer. I love that. You've got, you also have for those services a specific salesperson who's going to take the call, and then you're qualifying on the phone before you go and meet with people. So that's all sounding really good. All right, Dave. So you guys are doing so many things well with your sales process, with your CRM. For those of us listening, I encourage you to watch the video version of this on either YouTube or at ramblinjackson.com/podcast, because Dave actually prepared something to share on the show. And I'm going to let Dave go ahead and share your screen and show us what does your CRM actually look like? What do the deal stages look like? And kind of just walk me through. I hear that you have a really good lead in your database. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we've got a Hell Yes client on the hook right now. I mean, this guy he's biting hard. And this is exactly what we look for here. So we've qualified him to the nines, and he is ready to go.
Oh, great. Wow. Okay. So walk me through, what are we looking at here?
So we got a client, his name is Jack. He's from Colorado. Okay. So we took the lead in, he called us. As you can see, real easy to follow. So we got his name, his address, the city, the state he lives in, the zip code. Over here, we're able to kind of track and assign. So right now he's a lead. At some point he may become a client. He's not a vendor or subcontractor, but there are some other ways to track, what this person is. We can classify him under residential, commercial, government, other. So he's a residential client. He's got a really nice home. He's considering creating an outdoor living space. Here we can assign this to the correct person that we talked about earlier. So we've got our designer, myself, our marketing manager, our office manager, and the owner here. So we can assign who this goes to. And once that is assigned, the nice thing is you can shuffle through and you can filter out, I want to look at only my leads or only my to-dos. Which is really nice because there's a lot that come in, a lot that go out. You can just focus on just that sales representative's leads. The referral, where it came from, which is super important. We've got all this list, which you build out on your own. This is not where they just give you a list and you're stuck with them. Everybody's business has, different lead sources and they do different things to generate leads. So once we assign a lead source, this will track how many people came from Facebook this year, how many people came from a Google search, how many did we get from Instagram, which is really important metrics to know where you want to step on and what's working for your business. Referral notes. So when it comes in, he messaged us on Facebook. He's pretty impatient, but has plenty of money to spend. So he'll expect a fast response and want a good sized project. So this is our basic CRM screen here in the LMN platform that we use at Groundworks. That pretty much shows this is all the basic information that you got. As we scroll over, we got contacts, which will, you can get a little more in depth. We can get your email on here, your phone number. You can directly start to email right from here. This will also BCC your emails when you click on this, so you can save your email thread within this client in communication history.
And when you're using your regular email, either on your phone or on the desktop or a browser, does it log it in here?
It will, yeah. So as long as you BCC, it will save it in the communication history, which that's
so important. Here, so. Especially as the owner of the company, if I need to call and check in on a job, I can see exactly the last communication with the client. And, having that email thread is so helpful. So
Absolutely.
go ahead. So what's next? So you've got a lead named Jack. He's interested in outdoor living. This is
Yep.
all looking good.
So at this point, we'll meet with him, and that's where we start to add communication history. So we can add after, the initial phone call, kind of what they're interested in, outdoor living space. If you can get a rough budget off them, that's a big qualifying question that, we're sometimes we'll ask right off the rip, depending on what they're looking for. Do they want they want a fireplace? They're interested in, some retaining walls, just general notes you need going into that first initial, because you're meeting with, however many people before you eventually get to this client. It allows you to go back and reflect and say, oh yeah, I remember we talked, you were looking for the outdoor living space, the fireplace, anything going into that. So this is where you can develop a really nice, robust communication history with a client that allows you to, go back what we were talking about earlier, is remember all those details, record all those details, and then follow through and deliver on those details exactly the way it was agreed upon as you go along that process.
Great. And so what's the deal? Do you have like deal stages or like an actual, like a pipeline of stages that you can move me through?
Yeah. So once we get to the estimates, that's the basic initial sales process. Once we get into estimates, you've met with the client, you've talked through their needs, you're starting to build out an estimate, and that's where we can kind of get the different statuses. So as you can see, you can build as many estimates as you need for this client. This is, what it looks like from here. And estimate status right here is where, we can move through that sales process. So are we at internal approval? If you have a supervisor, you need to, approve the estimate before you, send it out to the client or meet with them. Proposal phase. So they have it, they're looking at it, they're pending. Did you lose the estimate at this point? Is it on hold for some reason? Maybe they're waiting on another estimate, or maybe they're, maybe something comes up financially that they're just waiting on. They haven't been able to make a decision. Contract pending, which is, we're getting ready to sign it, or it's ready to go. We're just maybe waiting on the deposit or some final materials. And then sold and lost. These are obviously the biggest two categories. This is the end game here. So did you complete and sell the contract, or did you lose it? And this is where you can reflect for the better or worse,
And are you able to add notes when you lose a deal?
Yeah. So we can add those, typically we'll put that in the communication history, just showing, hey, we lost the deal. It'll show lost deals on the year. So at the end of the year, when you get into winter, we can go back and just, pull up a quick report of all the jobs we lost, and reflect on why. Now, some of them are out of your control. They just said, oh, the other company was cheaper. So be it. Unfortunately, there's some things you just can't do. And you got to make sure that you're not bending over for clients just because they want a cheaper price. You got to be at where you got to be at, or else not worth the work. And then even with the sold jobs, what did we do well? What went well throughout this process? And what do we want to continue to replicate ourselves? And then also, as we grow, what do we want new sales representatives replicating along that way that was really good and really set ourselves apart?
Great. And one of the things that I really like about having this with those milestones where maybe it's on hold or it's pending, these things, is you can, whatever makes sense for your business, monthly, at least quarterly, look through what deals do I have that I either lost or are on hold. And wow, it's been over a month since I've contacted them. I'm going to send them an email. I'm going to call them. I'm going to send them something in the mail. I think that so often landscape companies, they get inundated with leads, and they're not tracking it like this. And then they may have forgotten to send the estimate, or maybe they've sent it, but they never follow up. So tell me, what's the follow-up process like? Let's pretend that you've got this client for the outdoor living space. You come out, you meet, we talk about budget. You send me an estimate and I never reply. What happens? How do you systematically manage that?
Yeah. So, from a design build standpoint, you're not dealing with, hundreds of clients like you would be on the maintenance side. So on that point, once we can create a report that says, here's our contracts that are, in the proposal phase, or they're pending and never
Hmm.
heard back. So we don't have like something that's automated that just says, hey, we haven't heard from you in a week. It's because that sales process is very personal. It's
Yeah.
getting to know somebody and being personal. The minute they start to feel that it's cold or this is too fabricated, it's really off-putting to clients, especially in our business where the job is so personal. It's their home, it's their space they're going to create memories with their family. They're letting you into their house. You've pet their dog. It's personal at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and there's also a fine line between, following up professionally and then just being too aggressive and putting people off. So,
Yeah.
if we don't hear anything for a week, usually a quick little, hey, I sent over the estimate. I wanted to make sure you got it, make sure you didn't have any questions for us, and sometimes that's enough to go, oh, it ended up in my clutter, or it ended up in my junk folder, or, we've been super busy this week. Bill and I have been out of town. We're going to be back on Saturday. We'll give you a call then. Thanks for email. Sometimes
Sure.
it's as simple as that, or they didn't see it at all. So it is important
Right.
to do
Yeah,
that
I think
follow-up.
definitely. Yeah, and the nuance of not doing it too much, of course. So,
Not doing too much,
yeah, I don't necessarily think you have to automate that follow up, but having it set up like this so that way you can at least see the status quickly, and you'll probably know who you need to follow up with. So,
and to just have a list of pending job, like things that are out there, and you can, exactly, okay, I need to, this has been X amount of days. I need to take a look at this. From a more long-term standpoint, that I think is a, something that is more successful than people give it credit for, is what you mentioned earlier. And that's, let me look back at some jobs that were maybe pending from the spring and it's fall now. I didn't hear anything back. We get so busy, as soon as someone doesn't really respond, we're just moving on to the next thing and just forget about
right.
it. So when you can go back and reflect, and we've closed a lot of business on sending somebody email, say, hey, we met on April 14th of this year, which we know exactly because it's in our communication history. We talked about this, this, and this. I never heard back from you. I don't know if it's something you're still interested, but just wanted to, kind of reconnect on it. And either way, just let us know, and we're not closing every time, but there is a lot of people that go, thank you so much for following up. We just weren't ready to do it, and we're ready now. And you're at the forefront.
Definitely. Or, especially this year with what a weird spring the whole nation faced, the whole world, a simple email this fall, September, October. Hey, Jack, we talked in March, obviously weird time. Is this something you'd like to discuss again? Yeah, actually it is. I've been stuck at home for 6 months and I would love to have an awesome backyard, and I've canceled all my vacations, and let's do some landscaping, right? Or it can even be an upsell for other services. That reminds me, you and we mentioned that you play music. I don't know what instrument you play. I play mandolin, and
wow.
I ended up buying a Northfield mandolin. They're a company out of Michigan. And I did a lot of research. I contacted some mandolin makers, and this guy, he ended up having a wait list that was like 2 years or something. And my instrument broke and I needed to get a new one fast. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. Maybe someday. And he just emailed me. That was 6 months ago, a personal email that was like, hey, Jack, I just created a new YouTube series about how I make these mandolins. Thought you might like it. And I'm like, man, this guy is on top of it, remembering to email me 6 months later. And it's the same thing as this landscape sale or whatever it is. Maybe you reach out for, a fall cleanup, or, hey, did you see that there's a big snowstorm coming? I'm guessing you already have all your snow contracts lined up, but if you didn't, if you had openings, you could reach out to people. So, well, anything else that you wanted to show us in the CRM?
Yeah, in this year, this is a really, really robust program. LMN has just done a fantastic job, and it takes you start to finish, and that could be a whole podcast in itself, just diving into all the features here. But just from building out the estimate, having everything you need, one of the things it highlights as a CRM is, are you truly billing what you need to bill? Are you getting enough money for the work you want to do? which is all built in and allows you to track even through production. So at a production level, you can track a commercial property where, there's hundreds of man hours flying around. Where do you stand on the year, and how is it easily accessible, which is also mobile? So our field foremen are logging in from iPads, their iPhones, tracking things all along the way, and we're able to see in real time where we stand, how are we doing. So, it's Element is a CRM, but it's a lot more than that, and it's all in one place, which makes it very, very convenient to be able to deliver that client experience.
And so does that time tracking, is that the same way that they log their timesheets for payroll?
You can do it that way. Now we don't do that for payroll, but we do use this kind of as a checks and balance system to see when are we logging in on LMN compared to when are we logging in, to work each morning and logging out. So it's kind of a two-part process, but a lot of people do, I know, use this for their payroll as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm aware of that. And I just know that some people, there can be a gap between the time tracking for, you think you've got your financial data here, but then, okay, now I actually have my time tracking over here from payroll, and there can be a gap. So I think whenever possible, keeping that the same reduces the opportunity for that problem. But I like that you're able to at least track your estimated man hours versus actual. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's super, super important. And just, sometimes you have big contracts, and this has highlighted us. We had a very large commercial property we're maintaining. It was a pretty high dollar figure, and we thought, man, there's so much money here. How can we miss? And you track the real hours, you track what's really going on. And at the end of the day, you go, man, this is not worth it. We're losing money on this contract, even though it feels like, how can we pass up on this massive contract? This is a huge, this is going to boost our revenue by 5% with one client,
Right. Yeah. And how often it's those big clients or big projects where people don't track or, end up losing money. So that's great. So what would you say is your number one favorite thing about using the CRM?
I would say, really all around, it's in my opinion, it's a must have. If you're operating a landscape business, you need a CRM. We know how crazy the landscape business is, how many variables we have. You do not need anything you can do to stay organized and stay efficient is important. And this is easily your number one tool, without a doubt. As an owner sales standpoint, this is by far the best tool you can implement into your arsenal.
What were some of the challenges that you faced in setting it up, that now that you've done it, you might share with somebody that they could avoid the first go around?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think some people go into certain technologies and think, we're going to sign up for this, we're going to use it, and it's going to fix all of our problems. And that's just not the case. This is a tool. This is like a skid steer. You can buy it, but if you don't have someone to use it, well, it's not going to do much for you. So, it takes time. I would say be patient. If you're going to be jumping into this, be patient with it. Consult other people that have used this specific platform, and talk through some of those issues that maybe they had, and help you build your business on. One thing that we did, we tried to convert all of our clients and upload them all, and there was just a lot of issues and a lot of wasted time. It would have been better off if we just kind of started from the beginning, instead of trying to import all these people and spend all this time entering all this data. Just start fresh as the leads come in, because then you enter them cleanly, you enter them the right way, and you're not getting a lot of, old backlash from old things that you just really don't need to be focusing on. That's a big piece that we wasted a lot of time on, is trying to convert too much instead of just hit the ground running.
What were some of the insights and decisions that you've made as a result of tracking the lead source from marketing? Have there been any surprises along the way of like, wow, this was really working, or hey, we should totally cut this marketing expense?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely highlights, marketing avenues for sure, you know, because when you're tracking where they come in from and where true sources are, you go, this is really doing nothing for us, you know? So yeah, there's some avenues, you know, not to slam anybody one way or the other, because everyone's going to be different. Certain things are going to work for certain people and certain businesses, you know. What we focus on is the high-end residential maintenance, and things work well. You know, Facebook's been a good avenue for us, believe it or not. Our website, just having that, updating that has been a really good lead source for us. And
Mm.
not just a lead source, but it's a qualifying tool. As people get to see us, you know, they're, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are sold and doing the research on the back end before they even contact you to begin with. You know, they're looking, do they have a Facebook page? Does it look good? What does their website look like? Does it look professional? Does it look like the other brands that I buy from? You know, so we always say, you know, we want to be the Mercedes-Benz of landscaping. So does our
Mhm.
website, does our digital presence portray that? Do we look like the Mercedes-Benz of landscaping? At one point we didn't, and we weren't getting those lead sources until we updated, until we spent the time to do that. And that was a big highlight. And once we did that, our CRM allowed us to track. We're getting way more qualified leads now that it looks like the brand we're trying to deliver.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing just how much the internet, your internet presence can impact the quality of the leads that you get. And so often I hear landscapers say, "Well, the internet doesn't work. I get garbage leads." And it's like, dude, your website is like 10 years old and you have photos, you have scans of photos from, 2004. Like, no wonder you're getting bad leads, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that you've got to maintain and constantly keep fresh and always add new photos in particular. I think the photos are so important, and the photos that you have on your Google listing, on your Yelp listing, on your Facebook listing, all need to be pretty good. They need to be like, do I want a lead for this project? Yes, keep it. No, then why get rid of that photo.
Get
So
rid of it. And there's a lot of, that was a hard decision to make. And we hired Joe, who you talked to, our new marketing manager. And there's a lot of things where he said, listen, these are some old photos. This is not what you guys are going for anymore. They're nice projects, but we got to get rid of them and move on, because the business has pivoted in 4 or 5 years. It's not, it takes a while to find out what you want to do, who you want to be as a brand. And once you do that, you have to really portray that. It's not always you need the most high-end photos if that's not what you're going for. If you're looking to be a middle of the road maintenance program, make sure you have good maintenance photos and make sure you look affordable if that's what you're going for. Everybody has different business models, so
yeah, I love hearing you say that. It's so important because so often landscapers they'll only do a professional photo shoot and only put out the photos from that one $300,000 job they did that one time where they didn't make any money and they totally hated it. And so now they have these enormous project photos all over their website, and they don't have any photos of the 20, 30, 50, whatever $1,000 job or the maintenance one. So it's largely putting the image out there of what you want to attract. And that's why I created that Hell Yes customer worksheet. I tell this story all the time on the show, but I have a client who he's telling me, I'm like, we're talking about his ideal client, and he's saying, I really hate these projects that have any kind of roofing structure or an in the ground pool or these water features. Man, that's really stressing me out. And we're looking at his website, and I just shared my screen. I said, all right, what do you see as your main photo on the homepage? Sure enough, pool with a roof,
yeah.
structure with a roof and the water feature. And it's like all of the photos were these enormous properties. So we talk a lot about design build sales on the show, but maintenance is really just a wonderful part of landscaping that doesn't get enough attention. What would you say, Dave, is your number one sales tip for people who sell landscape maintenance services?
Yeah, I would say, so that's, we're trying at Groundworks to shift the idea, and there's this weird stigma around maintenance that you have to do it. It's just a necessary evil. And if you break even, that's good enough. And that's just not right. If you're going to do something, you should do it, then you should do it well, and you should be profitable at it. So, the biggest sales point for us is that when we're dealing with people that have larger homes. They're busy people. They don't have time to think about it. We're selling that experience. We're selling that you don't have to think about it. Things just get taken care of around your property. We're selling our employees are professionals. We are uniformed. We're a no smoking facility. We don't let people smoke in our shop, let alone your property. Our trucks are lettered. People are looking good, and they're delivering that service for you all the time. Busy people, if they're paying for something, are willing to pay a little extra in order to know it's getting done the right way and not have to think about it. So for us, that was really a big aha moment. And when we figured out this is our hell yes client, this is who we want to work for, and they're a pain in the ass, they're hard to deal with, but they pay for it, and it's
sure.
That's what we need to deliver.
Right on. Yeah. And I think that mindset around maintenance needs to shift in order for you to really enjoy it. And it can be very profitable. And it is around, a lot of my most successful clients have thriving maintenance divisions. So Dave, is Colorado in your service area?
It is for the right client. We are willing to travel.
Okay. You're willing to travel for the right one. Well, your close rate on that one, your score confidence might need to go up then from 50%. I think today, pretty impressed. So,
I think we're up in that 80-90% range.
Well, we'll see if we'll have to see if you follow up. That's the key, right? Well, good, Dave. Hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you creating a client for me in your CRM and just kind of showing us everything that you're doing. It's really it really helps the green industry, and I hope somebody's listening. That there's so many nuggets to take away from this. So again, thanks for listening. Any other final comments for the audience? Can people reach out to you if they have questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're super open to that. We love getting involved in the industry. I mean, that's the one thing that is pretty cool about the green industry in general is everybody's willing to help. It's a tough business, and people are always willing to bounce ideas off of each other. So, you can reach out to us on our website. We're very active on Instagram, Groundworks Land Design, Facebook. We would love for people to reach out, and we love collaborating. And anytime you have something like this or some sort of interaction, you always pick something up from the other person, or even highlight some things that you're doing that maybe just talking through it, you realize like, hey, maybe we can do this better, or something always comes from it, So we're very active on social. So yeah, we'd love to hear from anybody and reach out and talk through any questions.
Well, great. Well, thanks for making yourself available. For those of you who are just listening, you can check out it's groundworkslanddesign.com. Or if you Google, Groundworks Land Design, Cleveland, Ohio, I'm sure you'll find them. I just wanted to recap and reiterate some of the things that I think you're doing well that I want people to take away. One is that you're tracking the marketing source in your CRM. I think that's so helpful. I just interviewed Craig Atkinson from Green Side Up Landscape in Richmond, Virginia, and he was sharing with me he was able to cut his marketing budget by I want to say 50% over the previous year, because he was, after using his CRM, able to see, I can't remember the exact amount, but he was able to cut it significantly. So you can save a lot of money. I like that you're following up with old leads. Everyone who's listening right now, if you're like, oh, I don't have time to set up a CRM, that's fine. Look in your sent email folder of the proposals that you've sent who you never heard back, and just simply send an email to those people. You're tracking billable time versus actual man hours to get at least some gross profit margins throughout the project, not waiting until the end of the year when you've lost all your money. And you've defined your hell yes customer. And so that's one of, I think, the most important things in sales and marketing is getting clear on who do I want versus who do I not want. And for those of you listening, definitely check out the episode, ramblinjackson.com/hell yes to learn more about that. And Dave, thanks again for coming on the show. It was awesome. Everyone.
Jack, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next Friday.